No, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here for that 3 months and to be a member of the center and attend to the seminar. And all of us, all of you for coming. I want to begin apologizing for my English. I tried to do the best, so I hope we can understand each other. Yeah, I'm going to speak briefly about my dissertation. It's not a work about Arendt, but Arendt is one of the most more important inspirations for me, and I use their concept maybe not in a really corrected or orthodox way, but I try to put in dialogue with other people in the idea of develop my own reflections about the point, and the point is how the global age is basically an age of displacement, like a framework, and not only like something that happened once in the time, and how is no connection, or not really good connection, between the political shape of the world and the reality of that world in our days. And I begin thinking about that because I was identifying some paradox or things that I don't really understand. For example, that how it's possible that many people who live in one country are citizens and members of the political community for other country, because their fathers or their grandfathers are originally from that country, and at the same time a lot of people live there in that second country, and they are not members of that political community even when they are living there and carry on their lives in that place. So that was one of the paradox or main things that I see. And the idea is, the basic thesis is that the political shape of the world doesn't pass with our reality, and I try to explain briefly why I think that. So I'm going to read a little. Under my point of view, there are 3 main fictions that dominated and hide the actual state of the world. One is the unitary fiction, and that's the meaning is the globalization has tried to overcome national borders and different worlds in order to make one global space. In this process, far from living more connected and closer than ever, as usually believed, areas of shade are growing. Everything exists now into this global space. The distinction between inside and outside has faded, and with it, the distinction between center and periphery has also vanished. We find those border or dark areas in the heart of the most important cities of the First World. They are marginalized as well as marginal places in which it is very hard to live humanly. In that little paper that I have written, I have tried to put an example about that movie. The movie is The Visitor, and if finally I can send it to the blog of the Hannah Arendt Center, I can explain, you can see there what I'm going to say, but now I have to continue with the second fiction. The territorial fiction. The expansion of the globalization has blown up territorial divisions inherited from the national states period. The notion itself of a clearly delimited territory with a homogeneous and specific culture manifested in the nation and that is capable of administrating and resolving the needs of matters that affect citizens living in it has vanished. Once the dimension of the world has widened, so have the matters that shape it. The third fiction is the fiction of security, and this larger fragmented world, the notion of security has become the main concept of politics at all levels. In an attempt to ignore the mobility, speed, and fragmentation of the world, the fiction of security has prevailed. This turns the state, nation, or culture into a fortress. Thus is based my hypothesis on the statement that nowadays the shape of the world and its material concept oppose and deny each other constantly. If we understand world matter as the group of experience that make up our world, we can assume that such experience defy or challenge the way in which we try to understand, order, and politically administrate the world. This way of understanding, ordering, or administrating the world is nothing but the political shape of the world. Modernity shaped the world politically on the basis of the notions of sovereignty and territoriality, where borders accomplish a double function, delimiting the territory and the political community. But global displacement, as well as the existence of an increasing number of out-of-place people, contribute to break down classical notions of the political and philosophical modernity, especially the notion of citizenship. This reality forces us to reflect upon how to create a world in which all people, in possession of the same fundamental rights, can circulate freely and defend their lives and their rights wherever they live. We are talking of human beings without a world, those who are forced to live inside a world that is not theirs, a world that, despite being created and maintained by them with the daily work, is not made for them. They find themselves in a world for which they are being used, but whose rules, aims, and language are not their own, and they have no conceived for their enjoyment. The decisive point in that some human being was part in sustaining the world is not to be questioned. In contrast, are not a part of it. It does not belong to them, and neither do they belong to that place. These superfluous, invisible, excluded, and helpless people are not an existence in the world, because due to helplessness they are inside the world but cannot find asylum, rest, or refuge in it. They are a part of the machinery that moves the world, but not inhabitants of it. The people do not live in the world, although they do live inside it, inside the world of others. After all we have said, to think about the political shape of the world leads us, in my opinion, to a reflection on citizenship in a globalized world. A reflection on the ways to make an existence of national states in a global world compatible with the defense of the human condition of all individuals, wherever they origin, wherever they are. This implies a deep reconsideration of the right of belonging to the political community, a transformation of the concept of citizenship itself to try to give an answer to the reality of the present world. It means basing the constitution of the world on the right to have rights enunciated by Hannah Arendt. This is the right of all people to be treated as subjects of law, independently of other considerations, and that this culminates in a political structure of the world capable of assuming the idea of a cosmopolitan citizenship, not linked to the territoriality of the sovereignty, and non-exclusive citizenship. My position is based on the statement of human condition as the main category from which to derive the notion of cosmopolitan citizenship. I admit it is not possible for me to rely on a theoretical basis for that notion of to right to have rights and human beings in general, and this stopped me from going any further in my argumentation. However, this does not prevent me from indicating that human rights are essential to defend human beings from violence, nor from relying on history to find respect towards the human condition as the keystone to think of a new political shape for the world that is more fair and integrating. The idea of a cosmopolitan citizenship attempts to invert the relationship between belonging and origin. If I are to know the individual's origin regulated his/her belonging or not to the political community, now this relationship could be inverted so that the right to belong to any political community derives from the previous right of all humans to be considered always and in every circumstance as subjects to law. This means turning the appeal to their human condition into the latest data from which to derive their right to belong to any political community they demand with no exclusion whatever their origin. On the attempt to eliminate or at least reduce to a minimum the exclusion assumed by the distinction between citizens and non-citizens, between us and the others, typical of the traditional concept of citizenship. I understand belonging as the right to belong to any political community, to be treated as a subject of law in every place and in circumstance. This is therefore a reflection about the political shape of the world, about the human condition and its capacity to derive from itself the human right to migrate without restrictions, as a corollary of the recognition of all human beings as legal entities. The reflection upon a new political shape of the world is specified in a reflection upon a cosmopolitan citizenship that is nothing but a consideration on human condition and the limits of the political community. So that's the point, and the time is up.
Well, thank you. Let me just talk to these things for a second. Hi. Hi. Was that? Are you done?
We're all set.
Okay, great. Thanks. Appreciate it. What was wrong with the door?
We just had the hinge loose up here.
Okay. Great.
You're all set. They can't car the door anymore.
Oh, okay. The door was broken. Victor, I'll just start. Arendt is often worried about preserving boundaries, whether in concepts or other places. And in fact, she argues that imperialism, the idea of infinite expansion and the loss of political boundaries and state territories is one of the primary origins of totalitarianism, in the sense that to expand to an ever larger world, a global world, actually means to lose the world. I'm wondering, do you see this idea of cosmopolitan citizenship as something that comes from her, A, and B, is it something that she would, is this something you're arguing sort of in spite of her or with her in your idea?
I think with her, because as I understand the state and the political community is like an instrument to carry on a human life in that way, and to narrate a life and a story. And in that case, I think that the idea of the limit, like the border of the meaning as well, it's really important to prevent it. but I think that there's no opposition to hold that the origin is not the main thing to be a member of the political community, of that political community. So I try to disconnect that two things.
But you're sort of suggesting that we keep political communities. We just make no limits on immigration or emigration. Is that the idea?
Yeah, the idea is that we are going to live in a world with national states that have to manage the political things, but we can think a way to make that compatible with the idea of a right to migrate without restriction. And that's more or less the idea, and I think that that is compatible with not building an empire and not being in that point. So not thinking in a global, big state that manage all, or other solutions in that way. For example, I was thinking in the idea of a human.
But isn't this going to create very much exactly what you said at the very beginning, the sort of idea of a global fiction that, while it may seem that it's going to make one world, it's going to reduce meaningful differences in places and create a thinner idea of what it means to be a person, a human being. Because part of what you're saying is take away the fact that I'm a German or I'm a Malaysian or I'm an American. Take part of that away.
I think that to be a German or to be a Spanish or something like that is something that have, like Aristotle says, have many meanings. So I can't, and I think that in nowadays many people who have the plurality inside them and was born in one country, have one language, and then move to other, live there for 30, 20, 40 years, and that is as well part of the biography. So I prefer not to talk about national identities and talk about plural biographies, and in that way of that process to build a story about myself, about the role that I am, with all the plural meanings of what I am or where I come from, but as well where I live. And I think that there are many ways to understand what's the meaning of be a German or be whatever.
I'm going to open in a sec. I understand the sort of feeling of I'm a cosmopolitan citizen, and I respect that aspect of what you're saying quite a bit. But from an Arendtian perspective, which again you said it's not an Arendt thesis, so this may be unfair, but the right to have rights is something that comes from being a member of a national state, or potentially a loosely federation of national states, but simply not the world. It doesn't seem to me that moving to the world gets you anything from a right to have rights perspective, and it makes the idea of politics, where you can act and appear in a common stage, and the idea of creating a common identity, almost impossible. It's hard enough in a big national state today, let alone in the world. In fact. And so I'm wondering, if you just don't think that's a problem, that you lose this these different common identities that are part of what it means to be a national state.
No, I think that that component of...
it's one thing to be a cosmopolitan and have your, I'm this, I'm that, I have multiple identities, but in a political sense, you need a place to be a political, whatever you're going to call it, whether it's a Martian or an Earthman, or a German or an American or Malaysian or Spaniard.
Yes, but I think that we can use a concept of the law and think that as in other countries it's possible to carry on trials for crimes against the human condition, human rights.
Yeah.
So, and that happens now, and we don't have an international penal court that really carry on that trials, and that happens. So we can think in something like a net for all that democratic countries that respect the human rights, and put at the basis of that political community the respect of the human rights in that way, in which the right to be great is only other of the human rights, and other countries could defend you because that have happened with you is that is against the human condition in general. So, and I think that it could be, we can think in a net in that way, and the political meaning of being in one concrete national state, I think it's only a fact. I mean, you are there, you are living there, and I think that you have the right to be a member and be a subject, and carry on with your life there and decide what you want to do.
This is informal, so anyone who wants to ask or intervene.
I'm curious, even if we did move away from Arendt's insistence on preserving boundaries and the idea that you have a right to have rights within your nation and your state, that this wouldn't function in a global level, it seems to me that the idea of a cosmopolitan citizenship would become a problem in that you would still be a citizen of your state. You would be a citizen of your state, but also a citizen of the world. And to what extent would this kind of cosmopolitan citizenship you're talking about become almost a last resort in the sense that we talk about human rights? Because insofar as these state citizenships still exist, those who don't necessarily identify with the citizenship they hold to their state, because, as you say, they have this multicultural background, it will still mean more in this world, in a political sense, to belong to a state than it would to belong to a cosmopolitan citizenship. So, are you arguing or saying that the preeminence of a state citizenship would have to be kind of succeeded in favor of a cosmopolitan global citizenship, or do you not see those in tension with each other?
Let's go.
Well, if you want to answer, you should go ahead.
Oh, okay. No, I think there's no problem, so there's no double citizenship concept in that way.
Okay.
So it's only that you or me, as a Spanish citizen, I should be able to be recognized in other countries, like a member of the political community if I live there for enough time and I want to belong to that political community. And that's something that happens when you are invited to that country to work there.
Yeah.
And after a period of time, you could become a citizen. So if that could be able to do that, if you could be able to do that, if you are invited for the country, maybe you could think in a political order in which you could ask for that, and not to be in that dark side of the reality, with you are invisible and you can't do anything.
Yeah, I think the way that I see it is that, like, part of the point is that, like, the idea of, like, the modern nation state kind of precludes the inclusion of immigrants into the legal process, and, like, rather than this being, like, a dilemma on a, like, global level, like, it's something that it, like, can't be addressed within the nation because of the, like, structures of citizenship. It's not something that can be fixed by the state that's like perpetuating these ideas of, like, citizen and other, because the nation isn't prepared to like adapt its own consciousness to allow others to be incorporated. And so I think what I got was the main point was like perhaps a shift away from a focus on national identity when determining citizenship, and more of allowing like the broad shared experience of being human to dictate when one is recognized with like where they're living or where they're existing.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, the example that I have used in the paper is about a guy. He comes from Syria after the war. His father was killed there, and they come with his mother to the United States and apply to be a refugee here. 3 years later, the government says, no, you have to go. They don't know. The mother don't say him. And they carry living here in like illegal. So that could be object to thinking about if that the people should or shouldn't do that, but that happens in nowadays. And most of the people that are living here in Spain and other countries are living there without permission. So, and in that way, they carry on with the life. They live here. So that idea of fortress, it's not real, because the borders are much more porous than we want to see. And that happens. And they are living here, working here, paying taxes, all. And one day, they should go immediately. And it's like your life, hold, and all stop. And you are not a person in that way, because you can't argue anything. And you are an object of an administrative process, and you have to go. For example, in Spain, and in general in Europe, when that happens, and for example, somebody asks you for your papers in the subway, and you don't have it, and they discover that you are illegal, suddenly, that could happen, for example, in the north of the country. You are picked up, put it in a bus, and put in the prison, and maybe in another city, in the other part of the country. You can't call, you can't say anything that only 3 days after. So you have friends and alive and many things to do, and that's completely disappeared. And you were put there during 3 months, expecting a trial, and then in most of the cases you don't have committed anything illegal. And you are going to receive only an economical penalty. You pay that, and you could stay. But during that time, you are in prison in a worse situation than a normal person that makes something illegal. So that's the thing. If you it's being residents in Spain. It's like to make something wrong with your car, because there is only an administrative penal and not a criminal. Could you think that all the people who don't drive good their cars could be put in jail for 3 months in that situation? I mean, that's the kind of dark area in which I'm thinking. So I'm not thinking only in a part of the world, in the desert, in which you are alone and you are like in the wild, wild west. I'm thinking in that areas that are, one of them in Madrid is in front of my house. So,
okay. Do you think countries should have the right to determine who can immigrate into the country or not?
I don't think so.
What's left of a country once you can't determine who can immigrate into your country?
Yeah, that's the problem. Why the only thing that defines a nation is to... So, the nation and the state is not a collective commitment in building a better society with some values. I think that maybe not, because if that's not the point...
Then why bother having nations?
No, I mean, I think that should be the point. And in that case,
But
all
if you're
the
going to
people-
do that, don't you have to be able to limit who can come in and who can stay? I mean, don't you have to, say, here's our people, here are the people who are going to build something.
Mhm.
You can't just let anybody walk in who wants to walk in.
But what happens when the people is there? So I don't think in a way in which we have fast
they break
borders. No, yeah, we're breaking, but
And you kick them out.
why?
If somebody breaks into your house, is that okay because they should be
No.
allowed to stay there?
No, but I don't think that the state is in my house. That's the point. That's a good question. I mean, I don't think that the citizens are the proprietaries of the estate.
The citizens are what?
The
Are not
properties of
the
the
owners
state.
of the
They're not.
estate.
Of the state.
Yeah, I don't think so. That's the point. And for that reason, I think that people could be not coming. They are there. So the difference is they could carry on their lives like now, working, but with rights, or they should be in the dark side of our lives. That's the point. It's not something about all the people are going to come to Spain because we are in hard times. So I don't think so that all the people, for example, I don't think, but in Spain now are living there around 3 million people illegally. And they are working. And they don't pay taxes because somebody has employed in that way. So it's not something that is going to happen. It's something that happened now. And that we have to resolve. And we have to decide if we are really democratic states that respect the human rights or not.
But I think there's a huge difference from recognizing a problem you have in your country and recognizing that there are a huge number of illegal immigrants, that you cannot just get rid of these, 3 million people. And there's a huge difference between that and saying that we should make it a policy that that it is 100% from now on absolutely okay for anyone who gets into a country to stay there.
Yeah, the problem is that when I talk about displaced people, I'm not thinking in other people really different from me, because now I'm here. I'm studying, I'm writing my PhD, and I'm living abroad. And in other way, I am displaced as well.
Yeah, but you're legally displaced.
Yeah, yes,
Is that not
of course. But I mean, I think that maybe, I don't think that the 90% of the people is going okay. I don't think so. And I don't think that I'm going to change all the political shape of my world to include a few people. That argument is, I think it's not an ethical argument, because even if the number is a few people, and I believe that I'm going against the human condition of that people, I should change it. In one point, I think. And in another way, I think that that displaced people is potentially all the people, because in my view, the displacement in nowadays is a economical necessity of our world. So there are many people living in some countries, and the wealth country are others. And there are not many people living there, and they need more people to work in that places. And the only question is, you are American, you have a PhD, you can speak 3 languages, so you are going to work in a better country, in a better situation. If you come from China, the same, but maybe if you come from Niger, you are going to move to Spain to work in the country, in the, but that's the point. So it's not something that happened with some especially kind of people. It's something that happens, in my view, because the system now, in the global age, asks for more people in some countries.
So I like the idea of kind of trying to recognize and give kind of legitimacy to something that is already an inevitable trend, as you seem to be kind of identifying it. And I agree with that. I think there is a certain kind of tide that people are, that the bureaucracy of individual nations is not kind of up to, it's not up to the task of kind of recognizing that. And I think on one level it's very important that there is the possibility of kind of expanding the options of what it really means to kind of to be a citizen or to become a citizen. And I sense that that you see a lot of good in people, and that you think that if they go to a country, that they inherently go there to become productive members of that society and that country. But there are also there are people that they go to a country and they don't want to be a part of, they don't want to be citizens, they really just want to kind of reap the benefits and the fruits of that society without making a contribution. And I think that might be a problem to grapple with. And so I ask, do you think that there has to be some kind of process by which to identify someone's kind of willingness to their merit as a productive member of society, not just kind of subscribing to certain rights and being recognized as a citizen wherever they go, but also the kind of converse of that, their ability to engage in civic duties and to make contributions. And do you think there should be some kind of system of recognizing that and meriting that and legitimizing that?
How could I say that? I think it's not a merit for me to be Spanish and live in Spain. It's something that happened.
Yeah.
In that way, it's really difficult for me to judge if all the people who want to live in my country is good for live in my country, because I don't have to do anything. I was born there, and I could be a criminal or not, but I'm there. And that idea of you are in your natural place, I can't hold it in that way. I mean, if you are for other country and come to others, and you are a criminal, you are good to be put in jail, like all the people. But I can't identify a process to see why you could be able to stay with me and your partner not. And for example, that idea of that happened in Spain after the Civil War, most of the people go to Mexico, for example, and to Latin America in general. Now, most of that countries in which the Spanish people were after the war, the people from that countries, if now they wanted to move to Spain, they should to apply to and ask to could stay there. That happens. That not happens 60 years ago, for example.
Right.
And most of because one of the fictions is thinking that now we are living in the age of migration, and that it's not true. The historical migrations between Europe and America at the beginning of the 20th century and at the were bigger, maybe not in number, but yes in average, than now. So and then that idea of have a passport and be a citizen of a country and have right or not was not in the same way that now. So I try to think in one way in which I don't take what happened now in my historical situations like a fact of nature. I'm thinking that maybe it could be possible to think all the way to manage that situation. Because in other moments, that could be an idea. And I don't understand now, neither, why all the people who say, oh, the war is over, we are going to death, the people are much more in favor to think, oh, I'm agree. And if you say, we can do the things better, all the people say, oh, no, get over it, because that's not possible. So if I'm trying to think in the future, both are two predictions of the future. So I don't know why the utopia is worse than the dystopia in that case. and I think that it could be, we could find a way more respectful with the human rights to manage that things. Because I think that it's not fair. That's only the point.
Clearly it's not fair. Is that a problem?
I don't understand the first one.
But it's not fair. Some people are born in the United States, some people are born in Niger. There could be advantages to both, right? But it's not fair. But whoever said it was supposed to be?
I think it should be.
Why?
Because I have an ethical commitment with the idea that all the people is equal.
But people have never been equal. People are equal only in one instance. In politics, when we create a political realm in which people encounter each other equally, you're creating a situation in which we are actually going to be unable to create such a political realm. Because we can't actually ever decide who's in our political realm. I mean, people are not equal. They never have been. That's one of the... I mean, equality is, again, from a Arendt perspective, a good idea in politics, but not a good idea in... It's not natural. I mean, we're not born equal.
Yeah, of course, it's not natural. Like the
turning
idea
people
of
into
living
money.
in a state.
Do you realize you're turning people into money? Interchangeable. Right? I mean, and it's basically saying that all people are like money. They can, you can move. You can use a coin here, and it's just you can just do an exchange rate, use it there. There's a way in which you're trying to turn the entirety of humanity into a common, a mass.
I don't think so. That's not my point.
Okay.
I don't think that the people it's like money. I think that the people it's like money now. If you come from Asia and you are rich, or you are a good technique in your discipline, you can live with me. But if you are poor, not. That's the point that I think. So I'm not thinking in create something really different than our world now. I'm only thinking that the people that are in my country and have a life could be in there because they are there, but with rights, and they can help me.
Well, okay, but there's different questions. There's a question of how to deal with the fact of illegal immigration and people living illegally in countries around the world. And those are important questions, right? Whether we should have let them in or not, whether once they let them in, we should give them an amnesty, whether we should not let other people in, the reason we let 3 million people in Spain and all the people in this country is because we want to have them work for less money than most Americans are willing to work for. It's because we want to increase our standard of living. It's an economic question. We could easily decide to pay people more to clean up our tables and clean our lawns, and then we would have less money to spend in the rest of our lives. And one could argue that would be an ethical approach to how one lives. We've chosen to bring in illegal people and let them work illegally, which causes a whole host of problems because, as you said, you have people living in dark zones, as you put it, outside the law, which creates a whole lawless culture, which is a real danger to the rule of law and the idea of law-abidingness in a civilization, and we're paying the price for that now. We can agree on that. Okay, I do agree with you on that. And we can agree or disagree on whether we think we should legalize them or pay Americans more to work in these jobs. But that's a fundamentally different argument than to say that we as an American or you as Spain don't have the right to make that decision as a political community. Because everybody is equal and everybody should be able to live wherever they want, which is what I hear you to be saying. Mm-hmm. But those are very different. I think you've confused two different questions. No?
I don't think so. I think that if we live, maybe because I live in a country that is a state with more than one nation inside, and I can think in the idea that there are people living with me with other language, with other culture, with other way to understand the life, and they could be part of the state. And one of the problems, for example, in Spain now, a concrete example, is there are young people, women, who are going to school and they want to wear the chador. And the people say that it's not allowed. I'm not going to talk about if we should allow that or not. I'm going to say only that one of the main things that the Spanish people say is, go to your country. But they was born in Spain. So, in that point, the problem of you belong or not because you was born in another country is only in the first generation. Because after that, they are citizens, they stay there, they are Spanish people, and the problem is not, I can't think in other and outside of the country in which I could send it to people. I have to think, okay, now there are Spanish people that are Muslims and want to do the things in other way. So we have to live together, respect us, and try to find a way to carry on our national project of living together. So, in that way, I don't think I'm going to finish with the idea of nation or even the idea of state. It's only that if I think that the state is an instrument to be able to live together from different people, I should be able to transform the political form of the state to be able to reach that goal. Because now I think it's not possible to do that for a really important people that are living there. That's the idea.
I think what's so interesting is that you are trying to say ignore the importance of the legal-illegal distinction. Right? That's what is. So, and that I think creates a whole problem about the right to really create boundaries, to say, well, you are a member of my community, right? It seems to be central to the idea of political community, right? So I can understand it if you're saying say, let's call it a utopia or this idea, that your proposal is to make everybody a legal citizen of Spain. That makes sense, right? It's a good proposal. But on the other hand, though, you are not quite saying that. You don't buy the legal-illegal distinction. Am I right?
Yeah.
That makes it interesting, right? So can one really create political communities without the law? Because that's what you are ending up saying essentially, right? The law is not a central element to creation of a political community. Am I right in understanding that?
Yes, because I think that the law is not the origin of the political community. If we're thinking, for example, here, where people, before the European people come, and the political community brings up due to the power, not to the law. So, there is that idea of contractualism that is like out of the time and out of the space in which all the people allowed to be like living together doesn't happen. It's another fiction that we believe to carry on with our political life. But why we can't try to change that situation that now means don't consider that difference between legal or illegal to think, okay, that's not the point, because we are going to make a law to recognize the people like citizens everywhere in all countries. And that's not something that very different to founding a new political community.
Who makes that law?
The people.
Which people? The world? Is this a world government that you're talking about?
No.
We're going to make a law to recognize all the people in all communities?
I think that that's something that happened, for example, in Europe. we have something like the European Union
They can't recognize it for Mexico.
because they don't want it.
Can Europe make a law for Mexico?
Could Europe recognize the people from Morocco?
No. Mexico. Could they make a law and say that all Mexico has to recognize all people as citizens?
That is not the way, because the way now is the people who want it could be able to recognize it like citizens, not for my country, as people that are citizens for other country. And I have a commitment with the idea of they should be treated equally as mine citizens. So it's not...
Sanjeev's question, I think, is the right one, right? I mean, how can Spain pass a law when Spain includes anyone who might identify with being Spanish?
That have happened in Spain twice.
I mean, you would basically have to put a ballot up on the internet, and anybody in the world who identified as being Spanish could vote on it.
I'm not identifying myself like being Spanish. I don't know what does it mean.
Anyone who wanted to vote on it.
No,
could vote on it.
If I don't know what's the meaning of being Spanish, which right I have to ask other people, what do you want, or why do you want to be Hispanic like me if I don't have that feeling? Because that is a feeling. It's not something that I have in my experience. So I kind of think that there's people living in Spain that is and was born there and feel out of place as well.
But I think the problem is that you're focusing on Spain. You're making that
No.
argument. You're making that
It's an
argument
example.
for your country, saying your country should open its borders and let anyone in and out.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you're talking about this kind of utopian ideal that every country do that Mexico do that Niger do that. But what authority, what is to say that Mexico must let anyone in? Without the word government.
The idea is I'm so sorry, but there is no authority. It's only a civic decision, an ethic decision that each different political community could be able to approve if they hold that kind of argument. Okay, so there are some countries in which they hold the idea of a universal jurisdiction in their own trials. That means that, for example, Spain could carry a trial against something that happens in Argentina for Argentinian people, and the victims were Argentinian as well. And for example, Mexico could carry a trial against Spain for something that happened with Spanish people in Spain. The idea is, I put the ideal of human condition on the basis of my own legal order and my own political community, and I decided that as human beings, other people who live in other countries or coming into my country and are originally from others should be able to treat in order to that ideal. And that, for example, that happens. Many countries in Europe, that is the area in which I knew much more about it, had recognized illegal people for economical reasons as citizens. In many cases. So I'm not talking about that we are going to do something new. It's only we are going to do something not for economical interest, only because we think that it's fair. That's the point. And it's not nothing that somebody should impose you to do it. It's something that you decide freely to do because you think that it's fair to that.
But who is you? Just would we have constant referendum all the time?
No, in that kind, the last reference is the individuals who are living in a political community and decided that the ethic value of that community, to make sense to that community, is to respect the human rights. That's the idea. And translate in our democratic process that value to the law. So It's nothing. I think that it's nothing really crazy.
Don't you
It could be.
But you presume everyone shares the same notion of what the basis of political community should be, right? What if my political community, I decide I don't want anyone that has brown hair to live in my political community? So it seems like this could actually be incredibly dangerous, right? That it could create many more dark spaces where people can't participate.
In which
right, the law right now, and the idea of the law being, attached to the state, the part of that is to protect people, and yes, it does create dark spaces, but overall you could say it's net good because it protects the Muslim second-generation woman in Spain who wants to, practice her traditions. Whereas in your world, I could decide that I don't want anybody who's different than me to be part of my political community, and so there's dark spaces everywhere.
And in that case, I can't say nothing. So, I'm only talking to that democratic countries who say and signs that they respect their human rights. And if they really do it, and it's my argument, it's correct, they should do that. It's only that the point, so it's nothing, because I have said I can't find a more strong fundament for that idea, that only the commitment with the notion of human rights, and to change the law and the shape of the political community, trying to put that notion in the center of the political community and in the center of the laws. It's only that the thing. But I agree with you. In that case, I can think that many people say, oh no, that's not the thing that I want to my country. And I'm not going to change it in that way. So, yeah, of course.
Okay, I think we're about out of time. So, thank you very much, Victor. And it was certainly a stimulating. Very stimulating and as Sanjeev said, interesting proposal, because you don't usually get people coming in here arguing for a truly radical proposal. So I thank you for that, and it was very interesting. So thank you, Victor.
Thank you.